Hoops! On this playground, it's a whole new game. And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Joe.
Guys, I got the feeling that basketball for us is the sport that, of the major sports, the one that we know the least about. Is anybody here a basketball fan?
I mean, I played basketball in my youth, before high school. And I don't really watch it as much as I would like football or hockey, but I still enjoy basketball.
Yeah, I wasn't, I didn't play many sports. I mean, I played baseball when I was younger, but I was aware of all, I played casually with friends, all these, football and baseball and hockey and stuff. But basketball was the one that I just never really played. So whenever I did, it wasn't pretty.
Sean, you bring up a good point though, and that's actually what I was leading on to is even if none of us really follow the NBA or care about basketball that much. Everybody, every kid at one point or another, goes to a basketball court or their friend has a basketball hoop in their front yard or whatever, and they play probably a more faithful version of what Hoops is going for today than, the double dribble we got earlier in the NES's lifespan, which was more of a 2-on-2 NBA Jam / NBA style game. Hoops is trying to go for that street basketball that I'm sure we're all just a little more familiar with.
Oh yeah, they've got it's all half court. You can only do as many as 2-on-2. They even have some of the common ways to decide who gets first possession of just shooting for possession. That's what we did on the playground. It's actually pretty faithful to the kids.
Yeah, it feels more it's faithful in the sense that it's it's the way that we played probably if you're just casually playing basketball, but also in the sense that in a game like Double Dribble, there's all these other players. It's kind of like a lot of these other sports games that feel like there's some simulation going on while you're playing too, and there's a little bit of a disconnect. Where this is if you're playing one-on-one, I mean, you're in control the whole time. So I think that makes it also a little more quickly translatable.
Yeah, I guess the one thing that it really doesn't, that is very unrealistic, is there's some unseen referee that's calling you for charging every few minutes.
Yeah.
You guys didn't have the local playground referee who made all the calls?
No, we did not.
No, of course not. No, I actually think that when I was playing basketball as a kid, I felt like you could just travel too. There was almost no rules, which seems
well. Then
impossible.
You're just an asshole,
Yeah, you're just yeah. But that's kind of how recess rules were, right? Everybody just kind of makes up the rules as they go.
I would call people out for traveling, but that's just me. I guess
I feel like
you're a stickler.
We were pretty self-governing in that sense, where it's someone might try and get away with that, but everyone's going to call you on it.
Yeah, if this game had, instead of a pop-up that says traveling or a pop-up that says charging, if it simulated an argument after that and the game kind of kept going, but there was just a lot of back and forth, then it would be much more authentic.
Yeah, I think what they should have done is maybe you hit select to call someone and say that they were traveling, and then they have to agree with you before the game can move on. So you have to get into a real life argument about it.
Yeah, there's a speech mini game.
Right, it's a house rules mode where the rules are just kind of decided as they go about. You just talk it out with the computer. It's all right, we're gonna agree to do this, but not this. Points are now worth 4. Cool. So, the one thing that Hoops doesn't have going for it, but apparently, lots of sports games back then couldn't get it, is any kind of recognizable names. Instead, they just try to tease you with the idea that the legends of the playground are all here. These are their own words. The legends of the playground are all here. Mr. Doc, Jammer, Legs, Bomber, Whiz, 8 players in all. I mean, if you're talking about the legends of the playground, you should list them all out, right? Like, I mean, how much better could the other 4 be if you're not even going to mention them by name?
I mean, well, are you arguing that that they should be legends that we personally know?
I'm just saying, why even go that far to give them, like, you know, I guess, like, I could see the argument of it shouldn't be, like, backyard basketball where it's just, like, kid versions of the NBA stars. But, you know, I think, like, teasing us with that the legends of the playground and it's filled with names of people we just never met or knew, I don't know, it doesn't like, add any emphasis to
it. It's the legends of this particular city's 2 playgrounds.
That's true, because they do say on this playground it's a whole new game. They don't say on the playground.
So you just don't know the neighborhood, Mike.
Right, I'm not familiar with this
you don't know Bomber,
Sesame Street.
Well, I think that if you can get over the fact that there's no real players, if you don't care about that, I think this actually has some advantages because they can make these players well designed from a gameplay standpoint more easily without having to think of like a real player. Like, well, what are they like? What do they play like? So I think they actually have some cool, you know. I admittedly didn't play with enough of the characters to actually say that it's well balanced, but it seems well balanced to me.
The idea of it is well balanced.
Yeah. They thought about balance.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what I was going to hold you to, Joe. Is like they thought about balance, but if you've played certain matchups, they suck. You know, I also did not play as all 8 characters. I didn't see that as like a worthwhile investment, but. I think Mr. Doc is like the all-around player, right? He's the one who's supposed to just be like, if you don't want to pick a certain strategy, just be Mr. Doc. He can do it all.
Him and Barbie, yeah. I think they have the same stats.
Yeah.
Barbie is the other name of the all-around player?
Yeah, but Barbie's the girl all-arounder.
I mean, it's nice to include girls, too. We haven't seen that in a sports game yet other than the volleyball game, right? Which was an all-girls volleyball team.
Yeah, you got to get the gamer boys and the gamer girls playing the same thing, you know?
Well, that's the one thing I wanted to talk about before we get into the game, too, is just like the, you know, Sean, you were saying I'm not familiar with this, this neighborhood. And I think they did a really good job of, like, making an aesthetic here for like a local
rundown
street,
city.
Rundown. Yeah, like no, I'm just saying like even like I'm sure they were emulating like some form of I made a joke to Sesame Street or like, New York City in the late 70s, early 80s. But like even the graffiti on the walls and everything like that, like it's all tasteful touches. There's no like they didn't make it so decrepit that it's like, oh, what are they saying about urbanization,
Yeah.
But they made it like true to those areas. I don't know how you guys felt.
Yeah, I think it has a pretty good presentation. It all like has it all feels like a whole. There's nothing that sticks out as. It's very 90s teen. What adults think teen aesthetic is, especially the cover.
Yeah, I feel like it's like the aesthetic of what I would see in like a video that my teacher played about like why not to do drugs or whatever. It's like the cool kids are like standing in this basketball court.
Like, hey, Mr. Doc.
Yeah, yeah, Mr. Doc, you got
want
Wiz.
Some reefer? Me and Wiz.
And who are the there's 2 kids on the main menu that I guess I don't know if they're like actual players in the game or they're just like weren't picked for the teams or whatever, and they're just blowing bubble gum over on the side.
They weren't
don't really
picked.
like. Yeah, they're like
that.
Going home. They're like, screw this, and it's like, all right, your turn to sub in.
Yeah, I think those are the developers' sons. Little cameo there.
Very interesting. All right, so we can talk about the game now, because I feel like we're already there. Sean, you already talked to quite a lot about this game. It's a half court style, the mostly 1-on-1. You can do 2-on-2 too, but you really don't have much other choices other than like whether you want it to be winners outs or losers outs, or if you want to be around the world mode instead of regular basketball. Let's just focus on like a regular one-on-one game for a moment. How does it feel going up against the computer and trying to take on the computer one-on-one?
It's very difficult. I found, at least. I feel like I had some trouble just holding on to the ball with against the computer, because they seem to have a more adept knowledge of the steal button than I did. So it didn't even feel like there was any action happening. I would just be relieved of possession of the ball once in a while.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience at first, especially. I was playing as Mr. Doc when I first played, and I don't remember the name of my opponent, but he was the shorter guy. He's slower, stronger. Slower, supposedly. On paper, he's slower.
Isn't that Jammer?
Maybe. But either way, as the guy who on paper was supposed to be slower, and he was way faster than me, I felt like, at least to my eye. And yeah, he would always be able to steal the ball from me, and it was very difficult for me to steal the ball from him. And after a while, I did start to sort of get the hang of it, where for a while I would stand near him and kind of ram the A button or B button, whichever one it is, to steal. And I would just be doing that because I'm right on top of him. And I think that, I'm not certain on this, but I think that there's a little bit of timing, I think, is important in this. And I think that if you're just ramming the button, it's probably harder. Because when I started actually just running up, and when I thought I was close enough, giving one definitive press of the button, I found that I got better results with stealing the ball.
I get that there's only 2 buttons on this controller and you do what you can, but I just felt like I hate these mechanics of, especially in these ball style sports games, where it's just get really close to them, hit the steal button or whatever, and hope that it works. It should either I guess always work, right? If you're close enough to the player and you steal the ball button, right? Especially because there's no defend button. It should just work. Or there should be something more involved than just be really close to this guy and hit this button. I don't know. I kind of agree with what Sean was saying about how it seems really hard to keep control of the ball. But even when you even if you manage to outrun or make a smart move against the computer player or whatever, it just doesn't feel like. It feels like mostly I'm just trying to avoid another player and make a shot where I can see the basket finally, so that I can see where my arrow is and determine if I'm going to make the shot or not. It doesn't really feel like I'm playing a one-on-one game of basketball. It feels like I'm playing keep away from another player. And the same thing with the computer. He's just trying to avoid me making too close of contact with him. Whereas I feel like in a normal basketball game, most of the game is played very close corners.
I would say that I don't know if this is true or not, but it seemed that because your character does a little animation when you go to steal, I think it really depends on where your arm lands in that animation, and if it sort of intersects with your opponent, then it steals, and that can also mean that your opponent is actually behind you, and it would be kind of impossible based on your positioning on the court for you to actually steal it. But that's what it seemed what was happening. So it doesn't make sense, but there does seem to be some mechanic happening there that isn't just press the button and you steal. You have to press the button in a specific spot and then you steal. But to your other point, I do agree. It's really hard to make a one-on-one basketball game really work when, again, you only have 2 buttons. Because if you're playing one-on-one basketball and any other, in real life, it's more than just positioning. It's more than just can you whack the ball out. It's there's also can you try and jump and block the shot, or just sort of screen him. There's a lot more going on in one-on-one that if you have it as simple as this game has it, it's going to feel like something's missing. And that's why I do think that the 2-on-2 is the better mode in this game. Well,
here's my question then. So similarly, you don't I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that you obviously can't really simulate handling the ball. So it comes down to like with the stealing aspect of it, you're stealing or you're not. Like there's not a level of skill that you're using on defense or on offense rather to kind of keep the ball. It's just like stay away from your opponent. So have either of you guys played like an NBA game recently?
Oh yeah,
even somewhat modern. How do they do that? How do you solve that with 4 buttons?
Well, they also use the analog stick as like did you play the NHL games?
I mean, I've played them, not much, but
So,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
yes.
like in a modern NHL game, like the right analog stick is like the stick skill or whatever the hell, and that is like a 1-to-1 representation of how you're handling the puck in an NHL game. Well, in the NBA games, like if you do certain patterns on the right analog stick, you can like dribble behind the back or dribble between your legs and sort of make these more the more complex maneuvers on a basketball court. You could set up screens. So there's the basketball games are very complex now.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I think even in like the PS1, PS2 eras, there was some in between complexity as well between what we're playing and what we ended up with 2K22. So I think it's sort of like on a curve. It's just hard for one-on-one to work again when you have these few inputs.
Yeah, because the advantage of 2-on-2 is that now you can pass the ball around, and you can actually fend off your opponents by strategically being in certain spots with your other. It's almost like, I feel like in the one-on-one mode, the only thing that's protecting you, Sean, you were saying there's a little like hand that potentially like that is the trigger for like if the hand touches the ball, then that player gets the ball back or something. If that's true, or even if it's not true, just like what I did to avoid being like taken, to have the ball taken from me, and it didn't always work successfully. But what I would do is I just kind of have I'd go like sideways with the player so that my back was kind of turned towards whatever direction they were going, and just trying to almost like fake them out, like go in one direction, then try another direction, or it's some mixture of that. And I don't know, it just doesn't feel as good in a 2D 2-button game, whereas like with 2-player now, the ability to pass makes the game a little more passable.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you. Sean, do you have any more thoughts on 2-player though? You're on a roll.
You mean 1-on-1?
2-on-2.
Oh, 2-on-2. Yeah, I have a little bit. Whereas it makes it more fun when you switch over to 2-on-2. Because now you have this other option, rather than just trying to run around a computer that knows your inputs. Now you can pass, but now passing is a little overpowered because I don't think that the computer can intercept or even like tip your pass. Like the ball's gonna make it to whoever you pass it to. So that almost makes it a little too easy because now your guy's in a position where the computer can't easily just ghost steal, and now it's really just you're lining up your shot, and maybe even like getting into a point where you can just dunk it. So it's more fun, but it's also like it has the opposite problem where now it's just way too easy.
Joe, your silence tells me you might not have tried to.
You know what? I was going to confess to that. But no, I did not try 2-player, but I do have a thought on 2-player. And that is that
2-on-2, right?
2-on-2, yes. Yeah.
Oh, 2-on-2, right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. I actually also obviously didn't play 2-player, but I have thoughts on that too later. But for now, 2-on-2. So I played a couple of games. I started out playing as Mr. Doc, and I eventually switched over to Bomber, who I think he's good at shooting from the outside. He's a little faster. And I thought that would maybe be a little easier because I was taking a lot of shots from the outside. And I found that I think he probably does make more shots from the outside, which is still hard to do, though. It's still hard to do. So I found that like someone like him would probably be good on a team of two. Where you can throw to him when you need to like make a big play. But if you're playing like one-on-one with him, I feel like his skill set doesn't really like help too much, because I feel like he seemed to miss shots more. So I feel like there are all this to say. I feel like there are a lot of these statistical things that maybe we were saying earlier might have been unbalanced in some one-on-one matchups that make it a little more robust and complex if you're doing 2-on-2 matchups where you can kind of combine each player's skill set.
They're designed to be complementary,
Yeah. So I didn't play 2-on-2, but I did think when I was playing with Bomber that, like, well, maybe I shouldn't have chosen him, but he would be a good teammate or someone, I know that you're controlling both players, but he would be a good teammate to, like, a duo.
Yeah.
I agree. Speaking of shooting, though, I can't believe we haven't talked about this yet. I mean, that's the point of the game, right? To shoot the ball into the baskets. They have a way. They have a solve for this that, I'm not sure how many other basketball games have here, but there's an arrow system to make your shots. Thoughts on this process here, Joe?
Well, so that arrow system, that's just for the free throws, correct?
That's that's the only time I saw it, yeah.
Free throws and I believe the entire around the world game.
Yeah.
Right.
Which technically is the free throws, but just from different locations.
Isn't around the world also just a means to... Oh, is around the world a full game?
I thought around the world was
I thought it was just a means to get possession, yeah.
Wait, you mean to tell me that if I complete a full game of Around the World,
yes.
I just decide... But that takes so long!
It does take a long time. Yeah.
I thought it was like a separate game where you just keep moving around the court. I couldn't even do that.
Wow.
But yeah, I thought it was interesting that was the free throw method, but it didn't appear the rest of the game. I mean, I get it. It would be kind of...
distracting.
It would be kind of difficult
so annoying.
to be running around and having to line up the arrow while you're playing. But it also does feel like making a shot is a little random. I mean, whether you're going to make it or not. I don't know if it has to do with the height of your jump when you hit the A button again.
I think that is what it is. Like, that's just... I think that's become the standard. Is it's just sort of like a timing. You hold down the button. You try and gauge where the apex of your jump is, and then you let go. But in this case, you have to not let go, but you have to like press it again. I always traveled because of that. Because
me too.
Terrible
or I would be trying
memory.
to steal the ball, which is the same button as jump and shoot. So I would be trying to steal the ball, and as soon as I stole it, I'm still ramming A. So then I would jump by accident, not realize I was shooting, and then I would land, and then I would be traveling. So that was not fun. But that's a little aside. But yeah, I guess if you were to spend more time with this game and really get used to it, you would probably get the feel of the apex of that jump and like how to make a shot. But just playing a couple of games like I did, it still felt a little random to me because I wasn't familiar with it.
I think if you just play enough of Around the World, I don't. It's crazy to think that like that just leads into a full game.
That was 90% of Mike's time in this game was playing Around the World.
And I'm pretty sure it was because I just couldn't believe that the computer actually was making as many shots. I don't know how much time you guys spent with that arrow system, but maybe I just have like terrible reflexes. But I could not make these shots, and when I did, I just felt like it was just luck. Like the randomizer of the arrow is like pure hell. Like somebody really, whoever designed that really knows how to do like some kind of form of random number generating, because that thing it doesn't have a pattern. It goes all over the place. I'm glad that the arrow was not a persistent thing in the game. And it'd be funny, Joe, I think at one point you suggested like if it was just always there and you had to time your shots with like when it was in the center. That would be a game where I would never score a point maybe. But also I just feel like I might actually just take the randomness, which again, I don't think it's that random, but like might take the randomness of if my shot makes it or not, just depending on like if I jumped in the right spot and when I release the ball and stuff like that, as opposed to this arrow thing, which might guarantee you that you're going to make the shot. But for me, it would guarantee I would never make the shot. I really did not like this arrow system.
I think the arrow, like, it ends up in the center, like, at very regular intervals. I think the randomness is just, like, what direction you would miss if you didn't quite hit that sweet spot.
but it's not. Yeah, but it's not just like. It's not just going like left to right or something. It's going like
That's just
diagonally.
that's just to fool
X's
you.
and then to the sides and then underneath and then it does like half steps where like it goes down then comes back up the same direction. It technically always crosses the center, just so fast that you might as well like anticipate pushing the button when it's not in the center.
Well,
See,
that's how you do it.
I noticed that it would every once in a while it would do like an up down right over the basket. It would do like two nice little like broad strokes over the basket, and that's when I would always look for and try and score. But then because I was doing that so much, I started to think that like the game probably should have like a time limit on how long I'm allowed to watch for this. Because I would just sit there for like a minute trying to wait until the arrow lined up perfectly, and then I would throw it, which like feels like I don't know. There should be some. I don't know, penalty for just sitting there forever until you have like the perfect shot.
Yeah, there probably is. I guess that's just what you get, you know?
It's just what you get, just like the street rules of it all, right? You just get the rules they feel like applying. This is not an NBA recreation. In the manual, I think it even says something like, playground basketball has fewer rules, but there are still guidelines. Like,
yes.
I think that's cute, and I like that they included some of these. I don't really have a comment about like if they should have included more or less. I think the game would be chaos if you could just do whatever you wanted. So I'm a fan of these additions, but it is traveling, charging, pushing, and out of bounds, which again, I'm not even like, is out of bounds something worth mentioning here? Like, is that really a rule thing? Like, so is scoring, right? Like at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I
I'm
think
just
you're
being
right.
particular. I know. Yeah,
It's
I'm
at the
just being
basest
nosy.
level of what makes a sport a sport.
One more thing we got to talk about. It's the return of the watch mode. Remember when games had these watch modes all the time?
Oh, yeah.
In the early NES? Now it's like, I didn't even click on this, so I don't even know what happened.
I didn't
But
either.
like, forget about like, I think there was Tecmo Bowl where you could watch, right? Just like, hey, I just want to put this on and watch these guys go at it, right? Do you really want to watch a bunch of like made up playground characters go at it?
I don't. That's why I didn't do it.
I guess it depends on how invested you get in that. Maybe after you've played this game a lot, you get really invested in these players.
Maybe if you do personally know the legends of this playground, it would be cool to watch a simulated version of them. I don't know what city this is.
Yeah.
So
This was based on a real playground, though, right? These are real
yeah, I
people?
imagine if that's what they were saying.
Maybe that's what we should do, though, is like we'll set up on our Twitch account, our Nostalgia Twitch account. We'll do a, round, an Elite Eight of basketball and just have them each face off against each other and stream the finals.
I think
yeah.
before that, we need to have a draft, the nostalgia draft
Right.
of the 8
So we
playground
have to
basketball
we have to
players.
have some skin in the game.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, at least $500.
right.
Okay, so that's...
if I win Zelda 2,
No.
Oh, hello. And
It's
if I
against the
win
rules.
$500.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll take it. It's worth 500.
Oh, I like that. I bet a lot of listeners would agree with you. And a lot of others would disagree, and that's why it remains controversial. That was my story about watch mode, so we'll just skip over that. I just wanted to also mention that this is a Jaleco or Jaleco or whatever they're called, that company who makes all the sports games. This is another one from them. They also make all those bases loaded games that we've played, and I think they did like Racket Attack and stuff like that. They make sports games. My point here is, in Japan, all of these sports games have like the same name. They're under like Moreo or Moro or whatever, and that's the franchise. Why not just keep the sports franchise conceit for North America? Like, obviously not the Moreo thing, but like, why not just have them all be like, Jaleco Sports presents, like, and then it's basketball, and Jaleco Sports presents baseball. Like, why make them feel like totally different games each time? I mean, they are different games.
I mean, they all still say Jelko on the title screen, but yeah, you're right. It doesn't have like that EA Sports sort of umbrella.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. Is like, don't even call it hoops anymore. Just say Jalico Sports presents basketball, and that's like, like that's,
Yeah.
I could see that being like a lame thing from like an Atari 2600.
The only thing with this is I feel like if you get like Jalico Sports basketball, you're thinking like NBA, and this is clearly something different. It's clearly trying to be like,
I would be upset.
yeah, right.
All right, we've got one more thing to settle on the court, and that is when we gather as a court. And I don't know where this is going. But
I think you're doing good. Don't second guess yourself.
Yeah.
This is
No,
good.
I know. I think I feel it. Yeah, like we are, we are judge, jury, and executioner here, and we're going to decide if this half-court game deserves to be on our full essential games list. All right, Sean, it's time for the essential games list. Take your shot on the court.
Yeah, I appreciate a lot of the presentation stuff. Though I was a big fan of like NFL Street, so I enjoy the amateur aesthetic of a lot of this stuff. But the gameplay is way too half baked. Like we never really said whether a lot of it was good or bad, but handling the ball and shooting, they feel kind of flat. And so, no, this is not on the essential games list or on Sean's patented essential sports games list.
Okay, Joe, we're subbing you in.
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard for me to try and to put a sports game on the essential games list. I will say that I do think that this, I think that this has value as a 2-player game. I think that it's so just such like a pure just like competition game. There's not like too much else going on. I think it would be a lot of fun if you and a friend both kind of got acquainted with this game and tried to play even one-on-one. I think a lot of the problems that one-on-one had would go away if there's 2 skilled humans involved competing. That makes it a little more fun. But yeah, I mean, I think it's one possible saving grace. And like you said, Sean, the presentation and the aesthetic and everything is great, but overall, it does not get on my essential games list.
All right, I think for anybody still listening, please see NBA Street Volume 1, 2. I've never played 3, but I have to imagine it's also good. See those games. There's no way I'm putting this on the essential games list. Not that it was like so bad that there's no way, but just that these games that I just listed are so much better, and they do the street sport genre so much more justice than Hoops does, but also arguably than any NES street style basketball game could do. So that's where I leave it. I'm just going to suggest other games this time instead of telling you what's wrong with this one. And that's what we're just doing here, right? We're just being prescriptive about whether or not you should play these games. And if we say you shouldn't play them, you absolutely should not play them. In fact, I would sell your copies on eBay for significantly less than they're currently selling
Too
for.
Nostalgicast.
Hey, to be clear, I didn't say you shouldn't play this.
No, I know. I'm saying when we
guys
say
do
that, though,
Yeah,
about
right.
any particular game. Like when we say don't play Zelda 2, we mean it.
If anyone were to ever say that.
Yeah, nobody said that. For the record.
I didn't think so.
I'm just trying to be even more.
I was trying to save
controversial.
you there a little bit. I was like, I don't want anyone coming to your house.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Whoa,
well-
hold on. Don't be threatening, Joe.
That did come off like I was threatening to come to his
Save
house. Or like I'm going to send someone. That wasn't what I meant, but it's just something to consider. I mean, that's not what I mean at all, but I mean, it's just like,
Why risk it?
Yeah, think about who knows? Who knows what I'm capable of?
Please save it for the best of 1989 episode. Joe.
Honestly,
I'm
though,
sure
now
we'll
if
get
you go missing right after this episode is released, I'm number one suspect. Like I'm screwed. So
yeah,
don't
that's
do that.
true. You should never incriminate yourself like that. But also, you shouldn't incriminate yourself, but you should follow Nostalgia at NostalgiaCast on Twitter. That is something everybody should do, and there's no way law enforcement would, arrest you for that. They don't arrest people for following people on Twitter. I know that for a fact. It's risk-free. Go ahead and do it. While you're there, follow at Esposito Film. That's me, Michael Esposito. And You know, I heard Sean has a Twitter, but he's not giving it out. So maybe someday, keep listening. Maybe one day Sean will give out the Twitter handle.
Day.
And Joe does not have a Twitter.
I don't have a
Don't
Twitter.
even ask.
Don't
even ask. Next week we've got Hide Lied. I hope I said that right. I think
it's
guys,
Highlight.
Highlight? Like the sport?
Yeah. Oh, it's not a
Another
sport
sports game?
I don't know. We'll see.
It's another sport. I gotcha. All right. If it's a sports game, we'll find out next Friday, like every Friday. Keep doing this with us. We'd love to see you here. We'd love to hear you here, and you'd love to hear us, hopefully. Right back at you, kids. Bang, bang.